My mic was muted. Good to see you. Welcome back to Black Bear News. Thanks for joining. We're live on YouTube, Rockfin, and on Twitter. And thankfully, Twitter is showing my video today. They weren't really showing my video yesterday. They just showed a link, which is so nice. So nice. Crazy video coming out of Dubai. And some extreme weather there. I don't know. It's hard to get the nuanced takes. Right. It's hard to get the nuanced takes on things. It's hard to get past the surface takes on things. A lot of people are a lot of people are saying that the cloud seeding is backfiring in Dubai. And if you know, they are cloud seeding, so it's not a terrible take. It's just somewhat surfacey, just a surface take. Which that's kind of how information and news works, anyways. People get the surface idea of something and they run with it. And maybe cloud seeding is part of this. I don't know. The thing to know, if you're actually paying attention to, extreme weather events around the world, which is what we're doing here, you would understand Dubai is not the only place that has extreme floods. I'm getting the weird up and down mic thing. Sorry. Dubai is not the only place that's getting extreme floods. If you understand the science of climate science, or if you understand what happens when the world gets hotter, we'll go with that. When the world gets hotter, there's more water vapor in the air. There's more evaporation happening. The water vapor itself is a greenhouse gas, right? It's why we have a new weather pattern in California. It's why we have atmospheric rivers, 13 of them. Now all winter long is sorry for yelling. The entire winter for the last few years has been atmospheric river after atmospheric river, over and over and over. Now you could, if you're, I don't know, if you're a surface level conspiracy theorist, you could be like, well, they're cloud seeding and they're geoengineering. If only they would stop that, then the weather would go back to normal. That's one take. And certain, I'm not against putting that in the mix. I'm not. But you could also say, well, in the last, 5 years, definitely, we've seen a rise in extreme weather events. We've seen a rise in temperatures. We've seen, a rise in CO2 levels, right? We've seen a rise in all of that. We've seen a rise in basically the obvious effects of climate change in the last 5 years. Like, it seems to have ramped up. And if you're paying attention and if you're watching the thermometer, the world thermometer, well, golly gee whiz, we're at 1.5 or past 1.5. Even when mainstream climate scientists will tell you that hope we don't miss the guardrail of 1.5, but we're at 1.5, past 1.5. These are the kinds of things that you would see in a hotter world. So, even geoengineering is a misdirect, right? Even geoengineering is a misdirect. Not saying that it's not part of the equation, not saying that they're not doing it on some level, but it's not the reason this is happening. It's not the reason this is happening. But the one thing that I will say about that particular take is that obviously when you geoengineer, when you do cloud seed, when you do mess with the weather, well, you're going to get unintended consequences, otherwise known as blowback. So, certainly could be in the mix, but I wouldn't just, the surface level take of like, well, they're geoengineering, their cloud seeding has backfired, obviously. Well, I don't know. You understand, like, maybe 10% of the problem. Anyways. Sorry, I'm on another coffee jag today. Get out of my way. No. But what's up? How you doing? What's up, Twitter folks? See some people watching on Twitter. Please do all the Twitter things like repost, like, comment even. Commenting is cool. If I see a Twitter comment come up in my StreamYard feed, it makes me happy. So that's always cool. There's a crazy part of this video, though. Not this video. There was a whole thread on it. Anyways, there's one video of like an apartment building, like a couch being blown off. Some very heavy winds going on there, too. I don't know. I think the geoengineering conversation is valid one. It's a little surface level. It's a little surfacey. And then you have to ask, why are they geoengineering? Like, well, let's assume they're geoengineering. Well, why? To control the weather. Yeah, okay. Totally. That's actually a stated fact. Stated mission of the armed forces at one time. Examples of that happening in warfare, of course. But what if it really is to counteract the activities of the humans? I don't know. Could there be something like that happening in there too? Sure, why not? Well, why not? This is crazy footage from India of a dust storm. Wild, a powerful dust storm sent debris flying in India, hitting unsuspecting locals. Right. And then there's the actual geoengineering that we're doing by all our manipulations of the planet in order to serve our needs, which we are absolutely doing. Right? We are manipulating full stop, 24/7, never taking a break, decades on decades on decades, a century or more of massive manipulation of the planet in order to serve our needs. Then there's that. You're right. That's a wild dust storm footage. I don't want to be in that. Well, let's look at this from Climate Watcher. From Climate Watcher. Why is my mic doing that weird thing? Excuse me. Extreme heat is pushing India to the brink of survivability. One obvious solution is also a big part of the problem. One obvious solution is also a big part of the problem. I mean, right. That's what people say about geoengineering. That's what people say about the technology we use in order to serve our needs. When blistering extreme heat gripped India's capital this summer, Ramesh says he felt faint but had no option other than to keep on toiling under the burning sun to provide for his family. The heat is becoming unbearable, the 34-year-old bricklayer told CNN, but we do not have a choice. We have to work. Ramesh lives with his parents, 3 brothers, a sister-in-law, 3 children. That's a full house in a congested suburb in western Delhi, a city that has made headlines in recent years as mercury levels regularly climb to dangerous levels. As temperatures topped 40 degrees Celsius, that's 104 Fahrenheit, this June, closing schools, damaging crops, and putting pressure on energy supplies, the heat was making his family sick too. Ramesh, who goes by one name, says he borrowed $35, nearly half of his monthly salary. Think about that. From relatives to buy a second-hand air conditioner for his home. It makes a noise. Sometimes it releases dust, he said, but we cannot do without it. By 2050, India will be among the first places where temperatures will cross survivability limits. Over under on, they say 2050, over under on 2030. Over under on 2025. I think 2050 is being really, really, really conservative and very, very generous. Within that time frame, the demand for air conditioners in the country is also expected to rise 9-fold, outpacing all other appliances, according to a recent report by the International Energy Agency. Ramesh's predicament encapsulates the paradox facing the world's most populous country of 1.4 billion. The hotter and wealthier India gets, the more Indians will use AC. The more they use AC, the hotter the country will become. Here's a bit of a That's a bit of a predicament, right? India emits nearly 2.4 billion tons of carbon dioxide. I mean, that's the predicament that we're kind of setting ourselves up for, right? Man, it's going to get a lot hotter. How are we going to survive? We're going to have to do all these things to survive, right? We're going to have to get some carbon capture. We're going to have to get some geoengineering. We're going to have to get some solar radiation management. We're going to have to get some marine cloud brightening. We're going to have to get some air conditioning. We're going to have to get some, indoor agriculture, hydroponic growing underground. We're going to have to do all these things in order to survive, and it's going to be a massive effort. Instead of what we could have done, or maybe even possibly could do right this second, which is use all of those resources to get out, to escape the technology web, right? To give everybody a chance to get back to growing their own food. To restarting the hydrological cycle, to, I don't know. It actually wouldn't even take that much money, right? Because most of it is stopping doing what we're doing. Most of the answer is doesn't even take anything. It doesn't take a lot of money. It actually just involves just not doing the things that we're doing. Most of it. 95% of it probably, and the 5% that it would take to actually put us on a better direction would be just take very little money. Anyways, we're most likely going in the other direction, which is use all of our resources to keep everything going for as long as possible, while things just get continually worse. Um, India emits nearly 2.4 billion tons of carbon dioxide a year based on data collected by the European Union, contributing about 7% of global emissions. The United States, by comparison, causes 13% of CO2 emissions despite having a quarter of India's population. So the United States emits double the emissions of India despite having a quarter of the population. So imagine everyone in India having a United States level standard of living. And if you said that shouldn't happen, people would call you, I don't know, all kinds of names, I think. All kinds of names. I can think of many. I won't even go through them. Anyways, well, they're gonna get to what I was getting to. This raises a question of fairness that climate scientists have often asked. Should people in the developing world shoulder the cost of reducing emissions despite being among those least responsible for rising greenhouse gases? Well, I don't know. If you call shouldering not attaining a United States level standard of living, if that's shouldering, absolutely you should do it. You should absolutely not do that. Some of the shouldering could also be put on the people of the United States. It won't happen. Not unless there's a mass awakening. Not unless there's a massive consciousness shift. Not unless there's a massive, like a, I don't know, marketing might not be the greatest word for it, but there would need to be an acceptance among the majority of people that we're going to have to adopt a completely different lifestyle, something more like an India level lifestyle, right? You'd have to go like, well, we're going to have a lot less stuff, might not even have cars or roads or, new and improved everything all the time. And we're going to spend a lot of our days, growing things to eat. Can you convince the majority of Americans to do such a thing? That would be shouldering the responsibility. Again, if you suggest that, people would call you all kinds of names, which I won't go into. Among which is probably dumb stupid head. Is one of the best names. All right. At the COP28 climate talks in Dubai that concluded recently, India wasn't among the list of countries that signed a pledge to cut their emissions from cooling systems. Addressing the opening session of the summit, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said all developing countries must be given a fair share in the global carbon budget. Nonetheless, India, one of the world's fastest growing economies, is on the front line of the climate crisis, and it finds itself in a tough position. How can it balance its development while ensuring environmental protection? Ooh. I like to know that too. What do you guys think about doing like a climate change like read along, like a book read along. Would you guys be into that? Tell me now. I don't know if I do it in place of Black Bear News, but maybe like an addendum to Black Bear News. Maybe we do like climate change book read along. So would you guys be into that? Where basically I just read a book about climate change for a little while, and you guys just listen along. Would you guys be into that? I thought that might be a cool thing to do. What's up, Rockfin people? Where you at? Rockfinners. Yeah, going south, you'd be into that? I don't know. I think could be kind of fun. Free Parson said that would be interesting. I've watched a Book of Mormon read along. I learned a lot. Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing it. Be kind of cool. Just a read along, for about same time, for about an hour. Just like go through a book. Several books I could start with. In a way, it would be like an audiobook, listening to an audiobook. But also being able to like chat and comment, right? It could be cool. Anyways, considering. All right. Anybody on Twitter have any ideas about that? Read James. What? Like, I don't know what you're saying on the last one. I don't know. The Black Bear Book Club, yeah. Yeah. I agree. Going south. Books are another frequency from just latest news. Yeah. Just like a little deeper exploration, right? Anyways. And you could just listen along, right? It could be like basically an audiobook, right? I do the reading, you do the listening. Anyways. I was at a show once, a music show, and the lead singer said, "We play the music and you listen. That's how it works." I don't know. I guess you had to be there. All right. Anyways. That could be cool. Also, oh. All right. Yeah, sure. Hold on. Let me look that up. Also, watch-alongs are kind of cool too, right? Finding a really good video, just to kind of like watch the video along, and break it down, comment on all that kind of good stuff. I enjoy those kinds of videos too. Sorry about my microphone going up and down in volume. Okay, let's get back to this article. Okay, sorry. Got sidetracked there. Vast swaths of India's population remain reliant on AC for their physical and mental well-being, and the country's more tropical southern regions remain hot year-round. Over the past 5 decades, the country has experienced More than 700 heat wave events claiming more than 17,000 lives, according to 5 decades. That's over 5 decades. According to the 2021 study of extreme weather and the Weather and Climate Extremes Journal. This June alone, temperatures in some parts of the country soared to 47 degrees Celsius. That's 116 F, killing at least 44 people and sickening hundreds with heat-related illnesses. And by 2030, India may account for 34 million of a projected 80 million global job losses from heat stress. According to the World Bank report in December 2022, this puts millions of people at risk in a country where more than 50% of the workforce is employed in agriculture. And as incomes steadily rise, all while urban populations explode, AC ownership has grown at a remarkable rate. Electricity consumption in India from cooling, which includes AC and refrigerators, increased 21%, which is phenomenal between 2019 and 2022. That's huge. According to the IEA, by 2050, India's total electricity demand from residential air conditioners will exceed total electricity consumption in all of Africa today, it added. But this demand is also all of Africa. Oh, you guys aren't hearing it, just me? Oh, God, it's annoying. My mic goes way down, like almost to the point where I can barely hear it. And then it gets really loud. It's a StreamYard thing. This demand is also exacerbating the global climate crisis. Like refrigerators, many air conditioners today use a class of coolants called hydrofluorocarbons, or HFCs, which are harmful greenhouse gases. And even more problematically, air conditioners tend to use large amounts of electricity generated by the burning of fossil fuels. The World Economic Forum estimates that if not reined in, air conditioning related greenhouse gas emissions could account for up to 0.5 degrees Celsius rise in global temperature by the end of the century. What about all the rise in temperature that they're already responsible for? What about all the AC that's already been churning out those emissions? India's dilemma. India is still grappling with widespread poverty while spending billions to upgrade its transport and urban infrastructure as it faces long-standing challenges to improve living standards. Well, this is the problem. This paragraph right here is really important because it ain't poverty. I mean, we think poverty is a problem. And poverty sucks if you don't have enough to eat or a place to live, certainly. But poverty is not destroying the planet. It's wealth that's destroying the planet. So there's a fundamental inability to understand the problem. Like that, that paragraph underscores the fundamental inability to understand the problem, which is pretty much, belongs to most of the human race. Not a lot of people understand this problem. Which doesn't, it's not that the information isn't out there. It's just that it's not just an inability, it's an unwillingness to understand the problem. What's the saying about from Upton Sinclair about man's inability to understand a problem if his paycheck depends on it. You know which one I'm talking about. Well, our degree of comfort and our comfort seeking gets in the way of most people wanting to understand this problem or being able to tap into understanding this problem. But, and there's also a dilemma in functioning in a world that insists that you engage in a particular way. I mean, I'm having it. It's interesting. I mean, my emissions have gone way down because I don't have a car right now. But it's creating all kinds of problems in my life because I don't have a car right now. Like serious issues in my life, right? I don't have a car. It's difficult. And no, I know everybody's going to say just to ride the bus. No. I live in Los Angeles. I live in a suburb way out from everything. No, that's not the answer. That's not going to be an answer. But the flip side is that I don't have a car, which is like an interesting it's an interesting exercise in living without a car, right? It does create problems. It also creates interesting solutions or just a different viewpoint of the world when you don't have a car and you need a car, but you don't have a car. You learn to look at things in a different way. So, I mean, so there's that. On one hand, I feel like kind of good because I don't have a car. On the I understand what we're doing to the planet level of intelligence, not having a car is actually kind of cool. I can at least in some ways, there's a part of my soul that feels a little bit better, a little lighter without it. But the rest of me that has to engage in the world in just a regular kind of normalcy kind of way, like, is having a really hard time with it. Anyways. Limiting cooling related emissions might be seen as a possible barrier to the country's economic growth, experts say. During the recent COP summit, or COP, 63 countries, including the US, Kenya, and Canada, signed a pledge to cut their emissions from cooling systems by 68%. Oh, let me say one more thing about my particular predicament. So I'm only required to have a car because I live in this system. But, like, if this system didn't require you to have a car to function, do your daily functioning, and there's actually a lot I can do without it, I'd have no issue. I'd have no issue with it, and I'd be like, great, no car, I'm fine. I don't need a car. I don't need personally, like, I gotta have it. I don't need it. But whatever. But I need a car, which sucks. Anyways, it sucks because I need a car. I'm gonna go get a car, I guess. Despite this, Brian Dean, head of energy efficiency and cooling at Sustainable Energy for All, which helped to develop the agreement, said India has shown important international leadership on cooling. Wait. We don't need a laugh track. That was funny, though. India is showing important international leadership on cooling. That's a great sentence. While it has not joined the global cooling pledge yet, I mean, the names for these things are just insanely hilarious. The global cooling pledge. Have you guys taken the global cooling pledge? I always I don't I don't I don't sorry. I don't dust with lemon fresh pledge. I dust with the global cooling pledge, you know. All right. Well, at least I think I'm funny. All right. Is this lemon fresh pledge? No, it's global cooling pledge. All right. Under the United Nations 2016 Kigali Amendment, many countries, including India, are phasing out HFCs and replacing them with more climate-friendly options. Didn't we already phase these out? Didn't we do this like 40 years ago? Didn't we already do that? I'm confused because I thought we had like a global. I thought we had like a global commitment to, yeah, something. Anyways, similar moves have worked in the past. The Kigali Amendment is an update to the Montreal Protocol that helped to phase out ozone-destroying chlorofluorocarbons, or CFCs, in the 1980s. Oh, I see. That's what I was talking about. Still, countries that lack access to adequate cooling need to help meet the cost of energy improvement, including the Radhika Khosla. According to Radhika Khosla, associate professor at Oxford's University Smith School of Enterprise and Environment. Cooling is now on the global agenda, but the hard work must begin to ensure everyone can stay cool without further heating up the planet. Well, all right. That's how are you going to do that? How are you going to do that? Does that involve what? I mean, are you saying we're going to do it in a non-technological way? Are we going to do... I don't understand. Okay. Planting trees to absorb sunlight, water bodies, courtyards that promote cooling and clever ventilation are more sustainable passive cool. Thank you. Just answered my question. Planting trees to absorb sunlight, water bodies, courtyards that promote cooling, and clever ventilation are among the more sustainable passive cooling strategies. Somebody in the chat said misters. That too. Installing ceiling fans or ceiling fans in buildings can reduce household energy consumption for cooling by more than 20%. If successful, passive cooling measures could curb the demand for cooling by 24% by 2050, saving $3 trillion and negating greenhouse gas emissions equivalent to 1.3 billion tons of carbon dioxide. Well, I'm just going to leave it there because I think those are great ideas. But again, sure, fans are cool, but they still require electricity, right? Just a lot less. But I like all the passive ones are even better. Right. The passive ones shade, clean breezes. Something's in the water says, how about white reflective roofing? I think you want blue. I think you're talking about you want blue so that we can fend off the space lasers. Something. I'm sorry. No, white reflective roofing for sure. or blue, which I mean depends on how you feel about it. Yeah, the passive ones I'm a fan of, right? Shade, bodies of water. The misters actually are better, right? Because it just relies on some water pressure. You can run the misters without electricity. Just saying. Let's see. All right, guys. So if you're into supporting the show, you know this is the time of the day where we go through the ways to support the show. If you can't do it, that's cool. If you want to do it, even cooler, because I could use your support. Anyways, support me at buymeacoffee.com/blackbearnews. You can cash app me some do-re-mi at Red Llama Music. You can Venmo me at Kevin Sandbloom. You could PayPal me at paypal.me at Kevin Sandbloom. You can Zelle me at Kevin Sandbloom at protonmail.com. You can follow me, Black Bear News 1 at Twitter, if you're not already doing that. What else? I should probably put the Telegram chat in the you can go to Telegram, Black Bear News chat. That's where we're doing big things on Telegram. You know what? Some things in the water. I don't know what kind of car I'm going to get. I mean, I did mold the electric car. I had a hybrid, and I think hybrids are kind of the best because they just use a lot less gas, but you're not you're not limited by a range, and it's still the infrastructure for cars, electric cars. It's getting better, but it's still, sometimes not necessarily easy to find a charging place, and it takes time. But I can tell you right now that my budget is extremely limited, so I'm probably going to get what's called a beater or a bucket, which is just an old ass car that runs. So I might not be choosing like, let me see which car. No, it's going to be like, this car is cheap, dirt cheap, and we'll get you from here to there. So that's probably what I'm going to do for now. Yeah. If I did live like more central, doing mass transit would be okay for me, but I'm like way out. I'm kind of in the sticks. Not in the sticks, but I'm on the edge of, well, I am kind of on the edge of the city. I'm like right up against the mountains, and I'm kind of out. I'm way up a hill, way far from a train station, way far, there's a bus stop here, but I'm just way far out from anything. So, and I'm up on a hill, so it makes bike riding a thing because I can ride my bike, but if I go down the hill, I got to get back up it, and so it requires it's a steep hill. It's a big hill. It's a big hill. It's a big, long, steep hill. So it's a serious endeavor. So it'd be different if I lived like down below in the city center. It would be like a totally different thing. Anyways, let's see. Excuse me. Sorry. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna do a little more perusal of the 7 reasons there's going to be a global famine. Yeah, actually, buying it's actually um, as far as emissions go, it's actually better to get an old car and use it until it's dead than it is to buy a new car, right? You're not bringing something new into the world, even though they're going to build them anyways. So there's something to be said for reviving something, not reviving, but keeping something going until it's been used up. Um, anyways, we ended here. We're gonna start with record breaking floods. Number 1, record breaking floods. These are the reasons there's going to be a global famine. And again, this goes all the way back to the floods in Dubai, right? People see that and they go, "Oh, the cloud seeding, the geoengineering went out of control. It backfired." No, I mean, there's record-breaking floods all over the planet. So, it just the surface level depiction of what's going on in Dubai is an incorrect one. Floods are the most common natural disaster in the world, and they're becoming more common and more deadly every year. This is the direct result of climate change. As the air gets warmer, it's able to hold more moisture. In fact, for every degree Celsius rise in temperature, the air can hold 7% more water. This is one of the reasons floods are becoming more common as the planet gets warmer. In August of 2017, Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, and it was the single largest rain event in U.S. history, dumping as much as 60 inches of rain in some places. According to climate scientists, Harvey flooded twice as many homes as it would have if there were no climate change. A few years later, in July of 2021, scientists were shocked by the scale of floods in Germany. All over the country, precipitation records were smashed, topping previous daily rainfall records by as much as 50%. Climate scientists were expecting to see more severe floods as the planet gets warmer, but they didn't expect the floods to be this severe this soon. It's a sign that scientists have been underestimating the effect climate change has on weather. What does flooding have to do with food? Well, floods often happen on farmland, and when that happens, crops are destroyed. For example, in June of 2022, China experienced its heaviest rainfall in 60 years. As a result, hundreds of thousands of hectares of farmland were destroyed, especially areas where they grow rice. As a result, we're facing the biggest rice shortage in 20 years. That same month, Bangladesh had its worst flood in a century, displacing nearly 4 million people. Thousands of hectares of crops worth billions of dollars were destroyed, and some 24,000 farmers were affected. At the same time, Pakistan had its worst flood in generations. At one point, 1/3 of the country was underwater, and nearly 8 million people were displaced. That's right. Y'all remember that. As a result of this flood, half of the country's breadbasket was wiped out, and 4 million acres of crops, mostly wheat and rice, were destroyed. Afterward, the ground was too wet to plant new crops, and countless farmers had their lives ruined. The thing I want to emphasize is that this is just beginning. It has taken over 50 years for humans to raise the average global temperature by 1 degree Celsius, but many scientists believe the rate of warming will double over the next 25 years, bringing us to 2 degrees of warming within the next 20 years. By then, the air will hold 14% more moisture than it did before climate change. If floods were the only threat to our food supply, we might find ways to adapt, but unfortunately, there are other extreme weather events that do just as much damage. For example, 2 extreme heat waves. In June of 2021, the northwest region of North America experienced the most intense heat wave since weather records began. No prior heat wave even came close. Before this heat wave, Canada's all-time high temperature was 113 Fahrenheit. Now, the all-time high temperature is 121 Fahrenheit. Never before has a high temperature record in Canada been broken by so much. And the previous record wasn't just broken on one day, but 3 days in a row. Climate scientists were shocked. Shocked, I say, by the severity of this heat wave, and it has caused many of them to revise their predictions for future warming. The temperatures were so far outside the normal range that over 1 billion sea creatures along the coast cooked to death. About a year later, in 2022, China experienced the longest and hottest heat wave ever recorded. According to climate scientists, no other heat wave compares to this one, and this one went on for weeks. The Pacific Northwest heat wave only lasted a few days. It was so bad that there were rolling blackouts across the country as the increased use of air conditioners strained the power grid. Those without power had to seek air conditioning in stores and subway stations. At the same time, Europe also experienced its hottest summer on record. Great Britain reached its highest temperature ever recorded, 104 Fahrenheit, a temperature scientists didn't expect to see for years. Until 2100. It's funny how some people accuse climate scientists of being alarmists. If that were so, then we would be seeing weather that isn't as extreme as scientists predict. Instead, climate scientists are continually being caught off guard by severe heat waves. They say parts of the world are on a brink of sustained heat beyond human tolerance, and it's happening decades earlier than expected. Exactly. Flabbergasted, amazed, stupefied. Right? Last year in the United Kingdom, millions of factory farm chickens died on a day with record high temperatures. Sorry, let me go back. I missed this one. This is a major problem for our food supply. There is a limit to how much heat our crops and livestock can withstand, and we're starting to breach those limits. Last year in the United Kingdom, millions of factory farm chickens died on a day with record high temperatures. Chicken farms have ventilation systems, but even that wasn't enough to prevent the chickens from dying of heat exhaustion. Over in the United States, thousands of cattle died during a heat wave in Kansas. Normally, cows that die of heat stroke are processed into animal food and fertilizer. But there were so many dead cows that the processing facilities were overwhelmed and the carcasses were dumped into a landfill. India and Pakistan also experienced record high temperatures in 2022. It got as hot as 120 Fahrenheit along the border between the two countries. This is bad news for India's wheat-growing region, which experienced temperatures over 100 Fahrenheit in April. According to farmers, the heat caused the wheat crops to mature faster, which shriveled the size of the grains and reduced overall yields. This extreme heat is why the Indian government decided to ban exports of wheat, despite their promise to make up for the lack of grain exports from Ukraine. But they felt they had no choice, as several regions saw their wheat harvests decline by as much as 20%. Right now, the world can handle a few heat waves and slightly lower crop yields. But at this point, we are seeing record-breaking heat waves every single year. What will happen in 10 to 20 years when there are a billion people, more people to feed, and heat domes form over multiple bread baskets around the world? We know the answer: higher food prices, food shortages, and starvation. Number 3, persistent droughts, and this will be the last one I read before we sign off. I'll come back and read the rest tomorrow. Persistent droughts. It isn't just that heat kills crops. Droughts are an even worse problem, and across the world, we are seeing some of the worst droughts in centuries. Climate scientists predicted this years ago, or decades ago. As climate change intensifies, wet areas will get wetter and dry areas will get drier, so places that don't get much rain are drying out, and places that normally get a lot of rain are being flooded. The world still has the same amount of water, it's just falling in the wrong places. Europe, for example, is experiencing its worst drought in 500 years, according to the European Commission's Global Drought Observatory. River levels have gotten so low that ancient ships, barges, and even villages have emerged from the water, and that is also true. That's happening. It's happened in the last few years. Of all the artifacts that have emerged, the most unnerving are the hunger stones. Centuries ago, during particularly severe droughts, people carved messages into stones on the sides of rivers just above the water level. Afterward, the water levels rose and covered them up, but now most of them can be seen again. One hunger stone can be found in the Elbe River in Czechoslovakia. The inscription says, Wenn die mich Wein. I don't know how to read German. If you see me, then weep, is what it means. However, whoever wrote it understood, and don't laugh at my really horrible German pronunciation. Whoever wrote it understood that when water levels are this low, it means that there hasn't been enough rain to grow food for everyone. And that isn't the only hunger stone. There are resurfacing all across Europe. The droughts in Spain and Portugal are even worse than the rest of Europe. Research shows that they are going through the worst droughts that they've had in 1,200 years. It's so bad that the Tagus River, which flows across the two countries, is at risk of drying up completely. In France, the extremely dry weather is already damaging grain crops. France is the European Union's largest producer of grain, but the drought has significantly reduced grain yields, pushing prices for wheat ever higher. The United States is also experiencing its worst drought in 1,200 years. Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the two largest reservoirs in the United States, are at only one-third capacity, and the water level continues to drop. The drought is so bad that in 2022, federal managers declared the first ever water shortage along the Colorado River. The river is the source of water for 40 million people along with billions of dollars in agricultural production, and it's only expected to get lower. The Great Plains are even more important for food production, as they provide about half of the United States wheat. Unfortunately, they are being ravaged by drought and wildfires. More than 80% of the region from Nebraska to Oklahoma is unusually dry, according to the National Drought Mitigation Center. Western Oklahoma had a particularly devastating wheat crop in 2022. The drought is so bad that about half of the wheat fields were abandoned by producers. Down in Australia, the mega drought is so bad that the country may have to abandon much of its farmland. Over the past 20 years, agricultural profits in Australia have dropped 23%, and it's only expected to get worse. Severe droughts are occurring all over the world in nations such as China, India, Pakistan, Ukraine, Turkey, and many others. In fact, by 2025, 2/3 of the world population will be living in water-stressed countries. Again, climate scientists predicted all of this a long time ago. What they didn't predict is how quickly it would happen. With all these mega droughts, you would think the price of food would be even higher than it is already, but farmers have made up for the lack of rainfall by pumping groundwater out of the aquifers. Unfortunately, this is only a temporary situation or solution, as the aquifers are rapidly drying up. I don't know what you guys are saying. Sehr gut? You're saying it was okay? All right. I'm not sure if I did it right. I think I messed it up. Okay. Anyways, guys, that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in today, all y'all who are watching on the Twitters, on the YouTubes, on the Rockfins. Rockfinners, let me check in on you. Rockfin looking a little dry. Where's all my Rockfinners at today? Maybe you're all enjoying the spring weather. Spring has sprung. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you hanging out, and I'll see you tomorrow at the regular time of 11 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And until next time, peace.